Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album here. It's by The Rain Parade. The album is Emergency Third Rail Power Trip. And yeah, today I'll just be doing my usual thing, giving a bit of background information about the album, then show you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So a bit about the band, firstly. So they were formed in Minnesota in 1981 by college friends David Roback and Matt Pukinky, I think that's how you say his name. I've probably mugged it up big time there. But anyway, they were both studying at Carleton College there, and they were later joined by Stephen Roback, like David's brother, on bass, Will Glenn on keyboards, and Eddie Kalwa on drums. They released their debut single called What She's Done to Your Mind in 1982 on their own label, Llama Records. And this album followed soon after in 1983, after they signed to Enigma Records. Now, David Roback felt that it was important to have a bigger label behind the bands upon their release off the first album, so that they could get effective distribution and effective promotion off their work. Now, the Rain Parade were one of many bands in what is sort of now known as the Paisley Underground music scene, which originated in California, and was generally characterised by a kind of 60s revival feel to it, very psychedelic influence, focus on good tight harmonies and guitar interplay. There were other groups from the scene, including the 3 O'Clock, the Long Riders, Dream Syndicate, and probably the most well known that came out of that, the Bangles. Now, interestingly, as far as the writer credits go, they're all over on this album. Some of them all wrote separately by either Stephen or David. Other times all the band members all contributed, which is quite unique, because usually it's either always just one songwriter or a duo, all the whole band are credited, whereas this one here everyone gets credited on exactly what they contributed to the album. Now, contemporary reviews of the album was mixed, with Village Voice magazine citing the wimpy singing and the wispy tunes, unsure drumming and repetitive guitar effects, and had a go it's naive world view. However, in the years since, it has been reassessed as a high point off the whole Paisley Underground scene, as being quite ahead of its time, as being a very much a timeless classic and cult album. Now, following the release of the album, David Roback left the band, so this is the only Rain Parade album which he is on. I believe after tensions flared up between him and his brother, we all know how that goes, and he formed another band, firstly one called The Rainy Day, which was a collective featuring other musicians from the Paisley scene, as well as then going on to form a folk duo whose name escapes me now, but ultimately Mazzy Star. I don't know any of their songs, but it's certainly a name which I am familiar with. And then following this, the Rain Parade would continue as a 4-piece band. I think they released another 2 albums. However, the magic formula had kind of gone, and those follow-up albums were nowhere near as strong as this one. So I will try to show you my vinyl copy of it here. It has quite an interesting release history. I think it originally came out only in America, and then it got reissued in the UK, which I think this one is, this says manufactured in England, so this was issued in 1984, so the following year, because it's got a gatefold on it here with a lot of nice pictures, and then a write-up about the band, and it basically says David Roback has since left, so this is definitely a reissue of it. And it's also got the song Look Both Ways on it as well, which wasn't on the original album. So yeah, I personally love the artwork on this. I love that gatefold spread, really, really, really nice. And the records, nothing too special about it. It's on this Zippo Records label for this UK issue of the album. A little bit difficult to find this one here. I had to get this one on Discogs. I think it's been reissued, but again, I'm not sure whether that reissue is even shot up in value these days. But yeah, that's my vinyl copy of the album. Okay, so we'll now go over each of the album songs. So there's 10 tracks in total on here. So I'll score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Okay, Okay, so the first song is called Talking in My Sleep, which is a really good song. Great guitar part on it, very sort of jangly, very sort of twangy, really nice sound on it. Vocally, it's quite sort of like lackadaisical. It sort of fits like the lyric of the song, kind of about sort of trying like to get off to sleep. So yeah, I think it's like a nice opener to the album, so I'll give that a 9 out of 10. And then following that, the next song is called This Can't Be Today, which is another good song, a little bit more sort of trippy and psychedelic sound on this one. Like a lot of like tape loops on it, kind of like a sort of like fluty sort of like mellotron that sort of sound like going on. And like vocally it's sounds quite out of focus, this one, and it's like a bit washed out, but the band performance is really tight on it. So yeah, it's just another sort of like neo psychedelic song, this one here. So yeah, would also get an 9 out of 10. Next up is called I Look Around, which is, on the surface at least, a more sort of straight-ahead song. You've got a very prominent bass part from Steve Roback on it, as well as like Eddie Calmer's drumming, kind of has sort of like a marching band that sort of feeling to it. But then again, you've also got a lot of like looping guitar effects on it, that sort of like backwards sounds very similar to like the Beatles song I'm Only Sleeping. So yeah, another solid song there, would get an 8 out of 10. What's the use of anything that brings... And then we get for me one of the first masterpieces on the album. It's called 1 hour half ago. So yeah, a bit of a odd title, but it is a great song, this. I love the changes this song goes through, from the sort of like the loopy riff like on it to the very sort of quiet, like a moody bits. It really, although it is only about 4 minutes long, they pack so much into it, and like yeah, a lot of like time signature changes like as well throughout it. And yeah, it's just a really dreamy, really sort of again very psychedelic song. You can really just get lost in. So yeah, that one for me would get a 10 out of 10. Okay, then side one closes off with a Carolyn's song, which is a more sort of slightly more, I'd say, depressing song, bit more sort of down song lyrically. He sings in it like, "Are you lost? Are you sad? Did I leave you alone? Do you think that they don't understand what it's like to feel all alone?" So yeah, it's kind of about basically just like being lonely, really. I like a lot of like the electric guitar effects on it, just sound very cinematic, very widescreen, while at the same time David Roback's vocal is very bare and very vulnerable. It is just a really nice song. I suppose you have to be like in the mood for it. You have to be feeling a little bit low to sort of like appreciate it fully, but it is a really good song there. So yeah, that one would get a 9 out of 10. And then we kick off side 2 with a more upbeat song. This was their first single, like I said, What She's Done to Your Mind, which again, the Rickenbacker sound really shines through on this one here. Again, more straight ahead, sort of like Birdsy kind of song, this one here. A lot of like the kind of progginess, like which is on a few of the other songs. It doesn't really feature like on this track, but it's just a good straight ahead take like on like a 60s pop song, really. Again, like I said, it was the first single, and it's a real shame it didn't do like anything commercially, because it is a really strong, catchy song. It's just not really what like record buyers like of the early 80s like were like really wanting. I think a really good, really timeless like little song there. So yeah, that one was getting 8 out of 10. Look at Mary, she goes round and... Next up, could be my favourite on the album. Like I would say it probably is my favourite. It's called Look at Mary, which is a epic and almost very hypnotic song. This one here begins with a sort of like a twinkly piano part, and then this looping bass line comes in, swooping guitars, really just carry the song along. Like when they sing like individually, like the Roback brothers, they're maybe not the best singers like in like the world technically, but when they come together and harmonise, it just really gives it a really otherworldly sort of sense to it. It is just a really like epic song, this, and plus you've got a great guitar solo from the other guitarists like Matthew Pukinki. Again, I'm murdering like his name there, but he does a great solo like at like the end of this, and yeah, everything just comes together so well. So yeah, Look at Mary would get an easy 10 out of 10 from me. The next song up is also pretty good. It's called Saturday's Asylum, which again sort of starts off this with a sort of quiet organ bit, and like then it gets more jangly like as it goes on, like other layers I could add into it. For me, it doesn't stand out as much as some of the other songs on the album, and then towards the end it goes into this kind of cockney knees up like sort of feeling to it, which I'm not overly keen on. I would say it is my least favourite on the album. Just doesn't really stand out. It's not a bad song. It's just isn't a highlight on the record for me. Okay, and then the last song on the original version of the album is called Kaleidoscope, which is again another really great song. I would say this is one of the Rain Parade's signature songs. It's probably one of the most well known. I mean, it starts off with it's quite a long sort of spaced out track. This one here, you've got really interesting drum rhythm on it, sort of spacey organ, slightly drunk, like sort of like influence like lyrics on it, but delivered in a very sort of like super catchy melody. I mean, like it doesn't sound as far out like as some stuff like from like the 60s does. Like it's still rooted like in like sort of like melody and like trying to be like sort of like semi like radio friendly, like which like this song like is like it is a really good song list. And I would give it a 10 out of 10. And then this version closes with a song called Look Both Ways, which I'm not sure how this song was originally released, like if it was a B-side or if it was a standalone single, like or like what it was. But like it was added like a sort of bonus track like on like this reissue, and I think it really works like as a closer. I think like after like the long and sort of swooping like Kaleidoscope, you kind of need a track like this, a sort of like very short, snappy kind of back to basics song to sort of like round things off. Like I said, it's not a really advanced song. It's not particularly trippy, not particularly psychedelic. It's just a sort of good tribute to that early 60s sound, very early Beatles like sort of feel to it, like with like the sort of like the snappy harmonica, and like it's just a really good song, and like a good way to end the album. So I would give that one an 8 out of 10. Okay, so overall, this album would score 88%. So I think this is a terrific album. I think it's a good mix of memorable melodies and lyrical themes which are, like at times, a bit more darker, a bit more like introspective. But it's not a sort of like a depressing album like by any means. Like it's still quite up like in terms of like its music, but also you can really sort of like appreciate like the craft, like what went into this, like in like sort of like the multi-layered guitars, like the creative bass playing, like the drum parts. Everything just comes together so well on here. And although a lot of critics like at the time and like some people like today probably feel that this whole Paisley scene was just a pale like imitation like of the 60s sound, it's nowhere near like as good like as like, sort of like this stuff what actually came like from the 60s. But I think that it is a good homage. I think that it's kind of, it has got those sort of 60s sounds, but sort of like with a very sort of clean cut production like on it. But then they also, like the Rain Parade, bring in more proggy like elements to it. I can hear a bit of like kind of like Pink Floyd like in here like as well. So it's definitely got like a unique like sort of vibe to it. And for me, I think it's a timeless record. This, it doesn't sound particularly like 1983. It sounds like it could have either come from say 1968 or like later like into like the 90s. Like you can imagine like sort of like indie bands like trying to go for something like along like this sort of like along like this sort of lines. So I think a really strong, really timeless record here. If you're not familiar with it, I would definitely recommend like checking it out. Like it's well worth it. So that's been my review of the Rain Parade Emergency Third Rail Power Trip. So hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.